Hello, beautiful souls. Today we have an amazing guest, and we will be discussing very important topic of self-worthiness, how to get there, how to feel it, how it, how to find it and reclaim it. And today's our guest speaker, beautiful Donna. Donna, please introduce yourself.
Oh, thank you so much, Anna. Hi, my name is Donna Lucarini, and I am a coach specifically for women who struggle in finding the man of their dreams, and I help them to attract the quality men that they're looking for. My background, I'm a nurse practitioner, and so I still practice a little bit, but my passion is coaching and helping women.
Great. I happy to have you here today. And I know that sense of self-worthiness is a lot of connected with your work. And I think it's important to understand that whenever we do, whatever we do, where we are, it's always with us, and it always influences us. How do you approach, what would be the signs that person can see and feel that there's need work to be done?
Sure. Oh my gosh, I think all the time people, probably more so women, but we tend to think we're not enough. We're not smart enough, we're not pretty enough, we're not sexual enough, we're not lovable, it's just that enoughness. We just think that we're not enough. I think that would probably be the number one um, realization that we can identify with pretty easily.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think it's a lot of times it arises when we think, oh, what if I do this? And no, it's not for me. I'm not enough for that. This second thought that you feel the urge to do something, like this second thought, second opinion from inside. How
Yeah,
do
it's that little monkey on your back that wants to tell you that you're not good enough. Like, no, I could never do that. That I could never be able to do that. That's not for me. That's for those other people. Other people can do it, but I can't do it. That's I'm not worthy enough for that. I'm not worthy enough for a good relationship or a career or whatever. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Uh, in the modern world, we have a lot of experts out there, a lot of social media influencers that are not always showing the true life of them, and we start comparing ourselves and
Yes.
feeling yeah, I'm not like that, I'm not good enough. But how do you think, what are the common traces where it starts, why it's so big a problem in our society, where it all starts?
Oh, where it start? I think it starts when we're much younger. That it really starts young. Yeah, really young. Maybe 3 years old when your parents aren't around or your father wasn't around or something happened and you just don't feel like you were worthy of attention back then, and so that just kind of creeps in, and we're unaware of that. And so years later, 10 years, 20, 30 years later, if we're not living consciously, um, then we just have those knee-jerk reactions, or we just say things, just belief systems, because we've been telling ourselves for so long that we believe it, but doesn't necessarily mean that it's true. It's just what we tell ourselves.
Yeah, I totally agree that it's all rooted in childhood, and I studied development psychology in from Dr. Gordon Newfold, and he presented this a different layer of attachment on the this sense of worthiness. Uh, but also, I think it sometimes can go wrong much later, if some traumatic experience happens.
Sure.
It could be also the case. How do you think, what would be the easiest probably steps for people to realize and start thinking of how to approach this question? Because sometimes I think it's as someone says, awareness is already 50% of the work. How
Mhm.
you build this awareness, what would be the first step, I think?
Right. Yeah. I think, it's interesting because I've kind of gone through this step so many times over my life. And and I always learn something new. It seems like, we keep evolving so much. So I think something that I teach the ladies that I work with is to make a timeline of your life, and kind of those key defining moments of, like for me, I know I can be like, I used to be my brother's little shadow. And then when I was 12 years old, I moved from New York to Texas. And then when I first moved to Texas, I had a very thick New York accent in Texas back in the late 70s. Was not cool. The kids did not like me at all. And but then, you get married, you have children, a parent dies, or you just have these key defining moments along the way. But look at what those moments are and see which ones are very painful for you, because those are probably the defining moments that kind of help is contributing to the lack of worthiness. And if you can look at it and say, oh well, I wasn't good enough or smart enough when I was younger, then you can realize, okay, no, it's the smart enough. So where did that come? Just kind of be curious about it, but then know that you're the one that came up with that story. So you have to find the evidence for it, and you can find the evidence either way. The evidence is what you made up in your own head. So change that evidence to serve you better, to serve you well.
Yeah. And I think sometimes it can be in a form of like journaling, but I think it's important to understand that sometimes we cannot see from our own perspective, and here's commonplace like coaches and therapists who can guide you, because it's easier to see all those situations and one step back. But also I think it's important to surround yourself with like support system. What do you think
Mhm.
about that?
Yeah. Oh, definitely support system. Some for it. I'm going to say yes and no, because I'll tell you, in my history, all of my support system always tell me, Donna, there's nothing wrong with you. You're great. There's nothing wrong with you, and I'm like, yeah, there is. I'm trying to figure out what it is. Like, I love you too, but you're not being very helpful. So I think too, just kind of really digging down and saying, okay, I am going to figure this out. Not like, we see things on Instagram or what have you, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that's cool. And then it's a fleeting moment, and then you don't even think about it again. It's another day. But it's to really say, and that's of course why coaches are so great, is because you say, okay, I'm going to dig down, I'm going to deep, and this is, I'm going to journal about it, like you just said, journal, and I'm going to think about it. I'm really going to think, where was I, what was I doing, was it somehow my mother taught to me, or was it something that how my father was lacking, that maybe he was an alcoholic and he just wasn't around, and really dig into it and get those feelings up and say, I have to reframe that. Like, if he was an alcoholic and didn't spend time with me, it wasn't that he didn't care about me and that he cared about alcohol more. It was just that he had an addiction and it had nothing to do with me. And really say it, believe it, feel it, like really feel it and know it and get to know it deep down. And then say those mantras and positive affirmations based on your new belief system that you want to write for yourself.
Yeah. And I like how emphasize like there's no way without deep inner work. Like there's no way to conquer this just scratching the surface. You need to go deep. But also I want to step back and not like highlight that you said that if you feel that there's something work, but all your like family and friends say, well, you're great, but if you feel that there's work need to be done, trust your gut.
Yeah.
Go and explore this.
Right. I know
So
sometimes it can be painful. And so you don't want to do that. And so you listen to your family. And then, of course, then 10 years later, you're still having that lack of worthiness. And everybody changes at their own time or does the work when they're ready to do their work. But I think everybody has to do work at some time or another in their life to figure out there's a lot of stuff there for everybody.
yeah, as they say, however you raise your kids, there's always been something to bring to the therapy.
Yes.
example, here the person, he recognizes that, okay, I need to work on this, and he like find few key moments. What the next step would be? What the process?
The process after they define the key moments is to kind of evaluate and see what how do I feel when that comes up, and what am I telling myself about that. um I it's funny. I use the example of my father being alcoholic. Well, not my father, but a father being alcoholic. My father was an alcoholic. But something that my father used to do to me all the time, which sounds so rude when I say it, but he used to tell me when I was younger, pull your head out of your ass. And I heard that a lot. And I don't know if it really bothered me so much, but I know it bothered me somehow because I still remember it now. But I think that, you know what, he used to say that, and that could be used as a lot of good for me because that is a reason why I always have strived to learn more and be the best that I can be because I wanted to prove him wrong. But there's that fine line that I have to realize that I can be too aggressive or too much perfectionism that I feel like I always have to prove, prove, prove. So, in just knowing and rewriting that narrative to serve me better was that was just his way of talking, and it served me great because I feel like I'm pretty amazing today, and I'm that way because he spoke to me that way. But now I have to realize that I don't have to prove myself, and I don't have to, if somebody says something to me that might imply that I don't know what I'm talking about, that I don't have that knee jerk reaction um, like I did years ago.
Yes, it's always like there's middle ground, and if it's too much, even if it's a good thing, it could do harmful things. Uh, I also want to elaborate more on the thing that we need to understand that even if you like defined and okay, I'm worth it, like work on this, we need to understand that our brain will be resistant so much all those changes, and there's always will be some blocks. You will try to slip back because basically our brain is structured the way to maintain the stability, and all changes scares the crap of him.
Right.
So yeah, what would be the tools to help someone to stay on track, to stay on this way until it becomes the second nature?
I think what you said earlier, journaling, to be able to journal, I always think meditation is so great to do some meditation, just some quiet time, and just have a lot of grace with yourself and just know that it is a process and that it's going to be for good, but not be so hard on yourself or be judgmental because after all, what we're trying to do is to instill that worthiness in ourselves. And so we want to give ourselves some grace when we go through this process.
Yes, and also it's not only about the changes, but sometimes we think that we did all the work, but there's, as you said, new layer come up. We evolve a new layer come from the deep inside, and you're like, oh, it's a new trigger. It's interesting. There is work to be done.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, to be curious and not take everything so serious. I think that's for sure. We take things a lot too serious sometimes, and life is a journey. We just have to appreciate the journey that we go through and go do the work. I know when I did the work, I remember my friends used to call me and hey, let's go out, let's do this. I'm like, no, no, I am doing some homework, I'm doing some digging, I'm in this soul searching place that I just want to spend the time. And some nights I cried, and I remember calling my girlfriend and saying, oh my gosh, I can't believe I used to do that, that was so terrible. And she's like, no, it wasn't. I don't even know what you're talking about. That wasn't even like that at all. You made your own story. Again, that we just have to give ourselves grace and know we did the best we could at that time in our life, and there's no shame in that. Everybody does the best that they can, and again, just to have the grace and be curious and keep moving forward.
Yes. And I always want to emphasize how you said that it's all in our heads. Sometimes it just even not that something happened, but it's how we perceived what happened, how
Right.
we processed it.
Yeah. Now, wouldn't you say though, a lot of that has to do with religion and just culture and our family and the neighbors around us, the community? I mean, how much that feeds into all of that.
Yes, it's all adds up, and it's also like sometimes it could be just from social scripts. For example, you can feel not enough because there is, for example, the community where you live, the expectations are so high, and it could be probably just not aligned with yourself, but
Hmm.
in that time they were like pushing you to that direction, and it developed just because like of that. Yeah.
Right, right. Yeah, I was raised Catholic, and when I grew up in New York, and I I learned many years on later, I had a hard time. I was really trying to identify with the church. I was born into Catholicism, so it was a thing we did on Sunday. We just went to church, um, but I didn't feel that connection myself, and I really had. There was a lot of guilt and shame that went along with that, and it was like some of it I think came from the church and the way it was back then, but then the guilt of not wanting to necessarily practice the Catholicism, and moving to Texas where people would actually judge me and say, well, you're a cradle Catholic, like it's so, you take it for granted, where I'm like a born again and I appreciate it so much more than you. And it's so funny because just where you are in your life and how you're interpreting that, and what the norms are and social norms, and gosh, to even speak like that as a Catholic, it would brought so much guilt on. I thought, oh my gosh, this is terrible. So that, yeah, there's a lot of that goes into your personal timeline.
Yeah, and it's brought me up to the thought that we need to be cautious about our surrounding and who we spend time with. Because sometimes the sense of worthiness could be like, well, I deal with it, but then you're in the room with that person that like make you feel totally unworthy. And it's not because you are not worthy, it's just like the way your relationship with that person is. So
Hmm.
yeah, we need to be cautious about it for sure.
Right, right. So, what are some of the tools that you recommend for worthiness, feeling worthy, or kind of making that shift, identifying?
Yeah, it's definitely deep inner work, and it could be done by yourself or with therapy or coach, because with therapy and coaches would be much easier and faster, I would say, than by yourself, because by yourself you sometimes do not know where to dig even.
Right.
Um, and also I think it's a lot of reflecting and seeing, maybe in form of journaling, maybe just like in your thoughts, to looking back at those particular situation and digging deeper, like on the emotional level, why, like, okay, I felt unworthy, but what lies underneath it? Unworthy,
Hmm.
why? And also probably questioning all of that, because a lot of times we can come up with 10 reasons why I feel unworthy, but when we take a close look at those 10 reasons and see if they are true, they like do not withstand any criticism, and you see like, how, yeah. And I think, as I said before, like awareness is 50% of work, because if you notice and aware that it's your pattern, the next thing I would say it would be, when you caught your thing this way, just stop this thought, like stop,
Hmm.
calm your nervous system, take a few deep breaths, hug your little inner child, calm it down, ask what it needs, provide support, and like those tiny shifts will eventually lead to the bigger shift, because emotions send in chemical signals, and we need to rebuild our body basically how it communicates on the chemical level, and only repeat it, repeat it, repeat it.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Almost fight or flight comes in there. And then you've got to try to calm down your nervous system from there. Yeah. I think that what you're saying, good point to that as you're speaking. It just makes me think of when you look at all those different situations, you can really say again, it just goes back to that not enoughness. Like you don't feel like you're enough. And where does that come from? And I can think back, yeah, on my timeline when this happened, or when I was in this relationship. And it's funny, we attract so much into our life to try to learn that lesson. And my history with men is been almost abandonment issues. I felt abandoned in the relationship, and it was over and over and over. And I was like, okay, where did that come from? And then I thought, okay, when I was younger, I did feel kind of abandoned by my dad. He was there, but he wasn't really engaged. So his body was there, but he didn't read to me, he didn't play with me, he didn't really interact. He was just there. So it was that lack of interaction. And then I think, okay, a lot of my stuff stems back to that little girl. Like you say, nurture, give her a hug, tell her it's not your fault. It was just, again, he was doing the best he could. He didn't know how to be a parent any other way. That's how he was brought up. And so it wasn't anything against me. It wasn't even about me. It was it was about him. And so reframing that to serve us better.
Yes, I definitely can relate because I, my father was even not physically there, and my parents got divorced when I was 2 years old, and I never seen or heard from him since then. And I, it didn't bother me while I grew, like consciously didn't bother me. But as I started digging into therapy and digging into my thoughts and whereas my sense of unworthiness came from, is like it was all to that point. Like I was not enough to him to stay in touch, to interested in my life, to like just be there. So yeah, it's all goes down there, and it's a process. But
Hmm.
I think it's especially the father figure for the girls is much more important to track down, because especially I think when we were raised, fathers was not that into the parenting as nowadays, and I'm
Hmm.
glad that it shifted, but still we get a lot of work to do.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think well, it's I don't know, my father, he passed away now how many years ago? About 7 years ago. Um so he was about almost 80, I guess, when he passed away. But that generation, you will look back to that generation, and it was definitely different times back then than what it is today, or even 20 years ago.
Yes, for sure. What are some words of encouragement you can say to someone who just on starting this process? Because this process is not easy. I just want everyone to understand that it's not easy. It can be painful and messy, but it's so worth to go that path. What
Hmm.
would you say to someone? What's your words of encouragement?
Words of encouragement. Oh gosh. Well, I would say for sure reach out to someone if you need to, so you don't do the journey alone. Because, like you said, with a coach or a therapist, it is easier, it's faster, but also you can get clarity on some things a lot faster than just kind of sitting and it spinning in your head over and over, that you might spin in a direction that might be a little bit heavy, too heavy. But I will say, words of encouragement is, man, is it liberating when you finally, and I say finally, I know I still have room to grow, but what I have learned in everything that I have done over the past 10 years is quite liberating to show up and be confident. I mean, sure, I do still have my moments, but it's a quick thought. It's like, oh, I don't know if I could do that. And then I think that, no, I know I can do that, because out of everybody that I know that can do it, I'm the one who can do it. So I'm going to do it. Sometimes I might just have to, like, fake it till you make it, but I'm going to do it. So it's very
Yes.
liberating. Um, Hang in there, reach out when you need some help.
Yeah. I also want to emphasize that it's not always should be like this dark and heavy emotion. Sometimes it could be fun, like trying to play, just be playful and just put on this feeling, feel how it feels, just play with it, goof around, and it also will help you at least feel a bit better and give you some more motivation to get to the point when you will feel this most of the times.
Right, right. I think it is important. You just saying that to, I'm big into mindset, and you think about a victim mentality. And I don't say that in a bad way for anybody to feel guilty or shameful for being a victim, but, and I am guilty of it, of being a victim and not even realizing it, where when you're doing the work that you're like, yeah, but yeah, but he did this. Yeah, but he did that. Yeah, but I was so committed. Yeah, but he, and you play that and you don't realize doing that. And that works against you. Take responsibility, and that's when you can change your story. It's your story in your head. So you truly can take charge of what that story is and make it to what is going to serve you better, and not be the victim. Be the empowered woman or the empowered individual that is going to take charge and change over those thoughts that we have, that we've thought them for so long that that's what becomes a belief system, is things that we believe about ourselves that we tell ourselves over and over. So now we just have to tell us a new story over and over and over, and know what those lines are to that story, so you can keep repeating it over and over and over, and then one day it'll be easier and you'll start to believe it.
Yes, for sure. And also, it's important to understand that even being in this state of victim, a lot of times, like 99% of times, it's not the conscious choice. It's just like also past trauma or experience that led you to this way. But
Right.
we have everything we need within ourselves, and we have the choice to make, like conscious choice. Like I'm deciding, this is my choice. I will better, and every single day, little steps, little by little, you will get
Hmm.
there.
Right. Yeah. A lot of baby steps, but yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah. If you would summarize everything that we talked in like few sentences, what the most like wisdom points would be?
You put me on the spot now, Anna. Most wisdom points. Probably it's it's worth the work to dig down deep, find someone to help you, to be support system, nurture yourself along the way. Um, not your fault. It is what it is, and you're just taking responsibility to change your story, to live your best life. What would you say? What would you say your words of wisdom?
I would say that you have everything within yourself and you have power, even if you do not know or realize it. And it's just one step away from you. The step that you decide and make, that you will go this path and heal within.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, that's beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you for this conversation. I hope our listeners will have a lot of insights and thoughts and strategies. And I want to emphasize once more, reach out for support and help if you feel there is no need to be alone on this journey. There's
Mm-hmm.
always someone who will provide a helping hand for you.
Yes. Yes, I agree. Thank you so much for having me.